Hey guys, another broadcast from the Batcave. Just thought I'd do another video, go over some more of my books that I didn't cover yesterday. Um, still trying to figure out how to do this whole YouTube thing, so I'm just pretty much going to make it up as I go along. You can obviously see some of the bookshelf there, so I'll probably start on the top right hand corner. Jack Kirby's Fourth World books, they're the old original omnibus hardcovers. Never read any Fourth World stuff. Familiar with Darkseid and the New Gods though. Probably first got introduced to them through the Superman animated series, and then following that the Justice League animated series and Justice League Unlimited, obviously. Quite a cool concept. Jack Kirby's obviously well known for his New Gods material. Never read any of it though. Familiar with Mr. Miracle, Darkseid, Kalebac, Apocalypse, New Genesis, etc. Really keen to dive in though and have a good crack at it. There's a big all-in-one omnibus coming out, I think December. I thought about upgrading, but that thing's going to be huge, and I prefer, smaller sized books, just because they're easier to handle. That thing's going to be, the size of the Infinite Crisis omnibus, if not bigger. And you can't sit in a chair and read that thing easily, I don't think, or in bed. I read a lot in the evening before I go to bed, so I want something that's going to be easy to handle. It's not oversized, but that doesn't really worry me. But yeah, looking forward to reading that. Legion of Superheroes, Silver Age Omnibus, Volume 1. Volume 2 has just been announced, which is good. So I think that'll take us halfway through the previously collected archive hardcover books. Only Legion of Superheroes that I've read is the Great Darkness saga. Know the basics of them, but aren't too familiar with all the different characters. Cool concept. Quite interesting the fact that it's in the 31st century as opposed to, the normal proper timeline that the rest of the DC heroes are in. I've collected most of the Legion of Superheroes, whether it's omnibus, trade, or deluxe. But yeah, like I said, I only read the Great Darkness saga. Hoping to read it at some point, but I really want to get all the Silver Age stuff. There should be another 2 omnibuses, 4 in total. And I have the Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes hardcover, and there's just been a second one announced. So if they keep going with those, it should take us all the way up to the Great Darkness saga. And then there's a bit of a gap. I think it's the 5-year later stuff and some of the stuff prior to 0 Hour. 0 Hour or post 0 Hour collections are being released currently. I've got the first one, second one's been solicited. I have some of the DNA run, the recent Volume 1 trade that came out, a second one of which has just been announced, which is going to collect Legion Lost, which I've already got previously in a hardcover. And then I've got all of the second Wade reboot that turned into the Supergirl and the Legion of Superheroes books. And everything after that, prior to the New 52 as well as the New 52 stuff. Really looking forward to see what they do with the Legion of Superheroes with Rebirth. There's a few rumours floating around out there. Possibly if Jonathan Hickman's coming to DC, he might do something with them. I think he'd be really good on a Legion of Superheroes book. Did a really good job with Avengers. A lot of moving pieces, a lot of characters, much like the Legion of Superheroes. So I think he could really do, a big, massive, epic story with those characters. Swamp Thing, Alan Moore, it's a classic, never read it. The hardcovers are out of print, and some of them in particular are hard to find. I bought that set off eBay. All 6 of them, not cheap, but glad to have it nonetheless. I've read, the only Swamp Thing I've read is Snyder's stuff, which was right at the beginning of the New 52 with Yannick Paquette on art. A really good book, quite different in tone to a lot of the other mainstream books, such as Superman, Batman, etc. Obviously Swamp Thing was a Vertigo title, and I think Snyder's run had some of that Vertigo feel. Not that I've read Vertigo Swamp Thing, but I guess what I'm saying is it's got a darker, somewhat more mature tone, which I think set it apart from a lot of the other stuff in the New 52. Next to the Swamp Thing, there's some odds and ends. There's an old JLA trade by Mark Waid, which I bought a while back. I have the newer versions, at least the Morrison stuff in the thicker trades, and I've also got the Morrison stuff in OHC. So I want to go back and get the rest of those thicker trades, and when I do, it'll be double dipping with that trade that's up there you can see at the moment, but that doesn't worry me. So I get all the Wade stuff, and I think there's like Joe Kelly comes after him, or at some stage after him, and then I think that run of Justice League ends with Geoff Johns doing a follow-up story to Identity Crisis, just prior to, I think, a relaunch. So yeah, I want to read more of that era of the JLA. What else is up there? Another Legion of Superheroes book. It's just up there because I've got nowhere else to put it. It's part of the New 52 stuff. Iron, Kyle Rayner. Haven't read it, but it's written by Ron Mars, I believe, and can be hard to find. I picked both volumes up together off eBay for a reasonably good price. One volume of those two is hard to find, I think. And next to that is a Halo book. So it was the original graphic novel book that Marvel did. So it's got a bunch of short stories by various authors and artists from the comic book / manga industry. I think there's some Mobius in there. I read it a while ago, or part of it a while ago. Should sit down and read the rest of it. Was initially a big fan of Halo, and I guess I still am, but I just haven't really read much Halo recently, and I haven't played the more recent games, just because I don't have the consoles that they're on. But really enjoyed Halo 1, 2, 3, Reach, and the original Halo Wars, but haven't played Halo Wars 2 or Halo 5 Guardians, and I've got quite a few of the novels as well. Ghost of Onyx, the Forerunner trilogy, plus a number of others. But yeah, Halo's a cool franchise. I've done a lot of other comics since as well. I think Dark Horse has the rights now. Dark Horse? I think that's right, yeah. Below that, we got Brightest Day, obviously spun out of Blackest Night. Geoff Johns was involved in that too. It was a reasonably good series. Some of the storylines were better than others. I also got JLA Earth 2 there, Morrison book dealing with the crime syndicate from Earth 2. Seven Soldiers of Victory, an omnibus has just been announced for that collects both of those hardcovers and one oversized volume. Might upgrade. The omnibus will be oversized, but there's only going to be, I think, 20 something or 20 odd issues, so it won't be too big, so it should still be pretty easy to handle. The Omega Men by Tom King. You know, obviously everyone knows Tom King and his Omega Men work. Read through it, really liked it. Not sure if I liked it as much as I expected to, just because there was a lot of hype around it. I guess it had been built up in my mind. Quite a serious take, I guess, serious themes in there. And again, it's got Kyle Rayner in there, alongside the Omega Men. Probably read it again at some point, and maybe I'll pick up a bit more of it with a second read. Arkham Asylum by Morrison, haven't read it. Kind of wish I got the deluxe now, but I was impatient and I got the trade instead. May upgrade at some point. Be good to have all the Morrison stuff in deluxe or oversized format. Red Robin. Some of those trades are hard to find. Really enjoyed that, although there's 2 or 3 riders across those 4 trades, and I felt that initially it was heading in one direction, and then when I think another rider came on, either with the second trade or down the line there somewhere, the direction changed a bit. But a cool trade. You know, Tim Drake's pretty cool. What else is there? Paul Dini's Streets of Gotham, which is Dick as Batman and Damien as Robin. Haven't read it, but I've read Morrison's Batman and Robin during the same time, also Dick and Damien. I think it's got Dustin Nguyen on art, who I quite like. And Paul Dini's obviously a good writer, so good combination there. But looking forward to it. And I think also the white book is Heart of Hush. I think it's the same team. And there's a lot of Hush material, or a lot of Hush in those 4 books. Wonder Woman by Azzarello and Cliff Chang. You know, one of the sort of best runs in the New 52. Haven't read it, sorry, but looking forward to reading it. Action Comics by Morrison, picked those 3 up just because of Morrison. And you know, anything he puts out is pretty much great. All the new Krypton stuff that was prior to Flashpoint. Johns, Rucker, Robinson, you know, one big massive storyline across a number of books. The Supergirl books there are by Sterling Gates, I believe, and some of those tie into the new Krypton storyline. Our World's at War crossover that went through a number of DC books, predominantly a Superman story though, I guess. Pretty cool. You know, there's some Young Justice books in there, or Young Justice issues, as well as Impulse. And I've never really read any of those books, Impulse or Young Justice. I do have the new Young Justice trade that came out earlier in the year. You know, one of those ultimate or complete collections. And there's been more announced, so I'll pick up the rest of those at some point. And they've just announced an Impulse Omnibus as well by Wade and Humberto Ramos. So I'll probably grab that as well. I think it's the first 25 issues of Impulse, plus a few tie-ins maybe with the Flash. Whole bunch of Flash there, Flashpoint, sorry. The Road to Flashpoint box, all by Jeff Johns. Flash Rebirth by Jeff Johns. And then there's a Grant Morrison and Mark Millar book, sorry. Again, Grant Morrison, you know, everything he touches is great. Mark Waid Flash, haven't read any of that, but, you know, really love or really dig the Flash. Not really read any of Wade's Flash stuff or well, I haven't read any of it, and I haven't read any really Wally West stuff. So when I got into the Flash, you know, he'd come back just after or during Final Crisis, and Johns picked him up and started using him. So that's where I jumped on. But yeah, probably wait until all those Wade books are collected before I read them. I've also got the Geoff Johns Omnibus books with Wally, which take place after Wade's run. Some Marvel stuff there now. Ultimate Avengers by Hickman. You know, Hickman's another writer who I think of as being fairly similar to Morrison. Morrison does, you know, crazy, over the top, trippy, mind-bending storylines, and Hickman, while not necessarily having trippy, mind-bending sort of aspects to his books, definitely has large-scale, epic and scope storylines, and some of the threads from Ultimate Avengers ultimately play out in Secret Wars, which was the end of his Avengers run a couple of years ago at Marvel. Journey into Mystery by Kieran Gillen. So I picked up all the Thor stuff basically from Straczynski until now. There was a Journey into Mystery omnibus, but again, since I'd picked up the rest of the Thor stuff in either trade or premiere hardcover, I kind of wanted to stick with that same format, so that's why I picked up the Ultimate collections, or complete collections of the Journey into Mystery. Supposed to be really good. Kieran Gillen's obviously really good, so looking forward to reading that, but again, I'll read all that Thor stuff in one hit. I've read a tiny bit of Straczynski's, I think the first arc, but nothing past that, so I'll read all of that, and then you've got Kieran Gillen on Thor, and then Fraction follows him with the World Eaters, and then the Mighty Thor. There's some Fear Itself tie-ins in those books. Fear Itself was pretty good as well, that was Fraction. Didn't get an oversized hardcover, which is a shame. It's about one of the only Marvel events in recent years or in the last sort of decade or so that doesn't seem to have got an OHC or deluxe book, which is a shame. Hardcover's a little bit hard to find, but I think I grabbed it from a seller who was also a Kiwi that was in the Facebook group that I'm part of, the Omnibus Collectors Comic Swap group. Really bunch of great guys, really great bunch of guys and girls. So yeah, big shout out to those guys. And the Kiwi fella that gave me the book, I forget his name, lives up north though. But yeah, glad to have that. Avengers vs X-Men, basically the end of the extraordinary X-Men run by Charles Soule, and the Inhumans run also by Charles Soule. Not just the extraordinary X-Men, but also Uncanny X-Men, I think by Cullen Bunn, and what was the other one? All New X-Men, I think it was, which had the younger team from the past in it. Pretty good book. You know, Marvel's obviously trying to promote the Inhumans, and have been for a number of years now. I'm gonna, you know, promote. When I say promote, I mean sort of push to the forefront, and turn them into a big property, much like they did with Guardians. But that was a good book. I read all of Extraordinary X-Men and all of Charles Soule's Inhumans runs. And I don't know if they were great, but they were good solid reads. So it was good to see that sort of wrapped up in Inhumans vs X-Men. I guess that's about it for now. This video's gone on for a while and I've started to ramble a bit. So I'll wrap it up there, guys. So yeah, thanks again. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in another video in the future. Thanks.